133 of the Nerds at Large Gaming Podcast. I'm one of your hosts, Darby Hallman.
I'm Jeff Mayo.
And I am a special guest, Jacob Hamill.
Special guest Jacob Hamill is back, coronavirus free, I hope, seeing that I
Wait
am...
a minute.
Few inches... sorry.
Well, I did have that cough this morning. So.
All right, well, no longer Jacob Hamill. Thanks to Jacob for coming.
Time to stop recording.
Yep. And no, we are braving the terrible landscape out there. Things have gotten very real in the last week since we recorded last, and one of those big things that we are just going to jump right in less than a minute after hitting record is, you guys, E3 is no more, at least for this year. E3 is canceled for 2020 thanks to the coronavirus. And FYI, me and Jeff did play Ori and the Will of the Wisp, and we were going to talk about that, but we are going to do the news first because it's too big of a deal.
Big news week.
Jeff, news jingle.
Jingle, jingle, jingle.
A minute into the podcast, news jingle.
I had a big commentary where I was going to start as we got the worst news of gaming news of the year. Kyle Bossman left Easy Allies.
I do think we should talk about that at the end because it's really sad. But for right now, Jeff, let's do the E3.
Yep. Okay. So pretty much what Darby said. I'm going to try experimenting here a little bit and try not to do as much reading as far as the actual news stuff.
Yeah.
I just kind of have it up here so we can reference it. So pretty much like Darby said, E3 is canceled this year because of the coronavirus, and what they said, the ESA said they're hoping to explore the possibility of an online experience to replace the show. And anything I read is from Matt Kemp from IGN. Still throw that stuff out there. So yeah, it's pretty much that. They just gave out a statement saying it's canceled. They're planning to do the online experience, whatever the world that entails. And after that, naturally, some of the big companies and even some of the smaller ones gave statements for it. Microsoft and Ubisoft in particular said they will have digital events instead of having their normal conferences, instead of this. Square Enix released a statement, said they are doing something, whatever that means, probably a digital event as well. I mean, because, besides last year, but the year before that, and I think the years prior, they were already directs.
Right.
So they need to go back to doing that. Nintendo gave out a statement, saying they're doing something, plans revealed later. Probably more figuring out what they're exactly going to do with Treehouse because they're just going to have their direct, probably.
Yeah, we can assume the direct won't change much.
And we can get into it later, but there's some WB rumors that we can get into after we talk about E3.
But the rumors from Jason Schreier, so yeah, probably pretty true.
Yep.
So in general, what do you guys think? Because I think even just judging from last year's E3 and then us kind of talking about what we thought moving into this E3, I mean, it was pretty clear that E3 was diminishing in general anyway. Virus or no, just its importance and its how many people are there was definitely diminishing. And I think none of us would have been surprised if E3 kind of slowly made its way out or something. But obviously, at least I think this type of thing could hasten E3's decline. If just all of a sudden it's gone this year, everyone has to scramble to do other things. Either companies are going to realize that they didn't miss a whole lot by not being at E3, or just E3 in general is just going to lose that momentum of that yearly cycle, and then by next year, I don't know. I definitely what do you think this means for the future of E3?
I don't think there's definitely going to be one next year, but yeah, it'll probably be more companies than are not going to go than there have been, because like you said, they'll realize, hey, we don't necessarily need to do this, or at the very least, they won't have a bigger presence, and this will kind of help kill off E3 in general. There are other reasons why losing E3 is a bummer, because we mainly look at it from a conference standpoint when we think about E3, but we're going to lose a lot of stuff of hands-on impressions and the meetings behind closed doors that we don't really hear about or don't see, between, I think they said this, Banjo being in Smash, that came from meetings at E3. So stuff like that may not come to fruition as much, and this will hurt smaller indie devs more who talk to other companies more than anything. But yeah, they're good.
Yeah, I kind of agree with what Jeff is saying. It's kind of, kind of expecting like what this will spell for E3 2021. It's kind of peering into a magic crystal ball in a way. But I think with a lot of these companies shifting to digital events, I think at the end you're gonna have companies looking at their bottom line. They're gonna be like, so how much money were we spending on on an E3 press conference, on a space at E3 on the show floor? And I think there's going to be a reassessment of, we really don't need to be there. And we really don't need to be spending all this money to put on an event like this.
Right.
And so I think that will hurt, I think, E3 next year. At the same time, maybe in a way like this coronavirus outbreak and E3 getting canceled might actually be good for the show next year, because of the way things, even before this outbreak, the way things were going, it seemed that the show was going to be maybe like controversial or a little different, maybe not necessarily in a good way.
Because you already had people pulling out before this was a problem.
You had Jeff Keighley making his comments, I think last year.
And I Am 8-Bit seemed unrelated to this.
Yeah, their statements as the, I guess, creative directors of the show, was not in any way related to concerns over the spreading of the infection. It was more of just like, it's not a show that we want to be a part of. Yeah, and we're pulling out.
Which, especially this close to the show, that's a pretty big deal. I mean, for both of them. For Keighley, even Keighley was not that long ago whenever he made that announcement. I agree. Like you said, it's kind of hard to know. I mean, this could just mean that E3 has an extra year to figure its stuff out, and maybe by the time we get to the next E3, there's like more of a, it's been built up for 2 straight years. And also, this E3 was, I think, always was going to be a simultaneously exciting but also anticlimactic E3, because there was the new consoles. Or new console, because PS4 and PS5 was not going to be there. But that was like a big enough deal to make it where, like, okay, if Xbox had any thought of pulling out, they weren't going to do it this year because of the new console. But outside of that, just in general, as you've seen a lot through like 2019 and like the E3 last year and the E3 this year, I don't think there would have been a ton of stuff to see this year. Just like the last year of a console generation. I think like next year would probably be where things start ramping up even more. So, like you said, it might not be the worst thing, but I can't help but think a show that's already feels like it's on its way out and then suddenly has to abruptly cancel. I struggle to see confidently how that's not going to be even worse for it in the long run.
Mm-hmm. Certainly. I think any way you slice it, E3 getting canceled this year will be bad for the show in the long run. I do wonder though, like if the executives in charge of E3 are maybe kind of wiping their brows a little bit and being, maybe we dodged a bullet here.
Depending on how much money they're losing.
Well, I was going to bring this up. I saw this. Apparently, E3 is like 46% or something like that of ESA's yearly revenue. So
probably not much brow wiping though.
Yeah.
I mean, but it's also just E3 in general in its current state is not sustainable. It's just simply not, like the amount of money that like publishers have to pay to be there, and just how like people are already like going across the street and saying like, we're still kind of E3, but we don't want to pay for the ESA's garbage. And you have Sony already like Sony's pretty much planting the flag like, we're never coming back. I mean, unless Sony like falls from grace really hard, I don't expect them to ever come back. And just in general, like you said, maybe this will be a kick in the ass that it's like the ESA has to change the show, has to like get new leadership in there, because they just like the E3 in general last year, the last few years, people have liked less and less. This one seemed like it was going to be a complete catastrophe. You also had them leaking people's credit card information. Yeah. Just in general, the ESA is just not in a great place. Well, I also think if we're done talking about the future of E3, I think we can transition into what do we think this means for this year, and what this means for all the console, all the publishers. I mean, especially Xbox with the Series X, but also just studios that had already planned their E3 like stuff and everything. Like, do you think us going to this probably all digital format, because I imagine all the announcements that were going to be at E3 are still going to be announced this summer at some point. Do you think we're going to see like do you think that they're going to suffer from not having E3 and this being more of a separated thing?
The individual brands, the big ones like Microsoft, no, because E3 is a big deal because of them. I think they're fine. I think what this does is hurt the smaller studios that are releasing games. Like, I don't know why this is popping in my head. Like, let's look at like Biomutant. Let's say that was going to have a really good showing, and after all this time, people getting talked about it. That's less likely now because people aren't going to get hands-on time. It's probably not going to be in a conference, and not just that, all the other smaller indie things, because people are looking for all the games covers during that time, even if they're not really big ones, or a lot more people are. So a lot of people are going to miss those things. And again, the hands-on impressions are very important.
Yeah, because I think when people say that like E3 had no value, I always pushed back on that for reasons like that, where E3 is something very unique that the gaming industry had that like other industries don't have as much. I mean, I guess there's like Comic-Con, but like there's definitely something different with the press focus of E3, where like, yeah, whenever we would watch Easy Allies like talk through their whole day of playing games, and one of them brings this game that I'm like, I've never heard of that, but you just hear them talking about it, and they're like, yeah, this game really caught me off guard, and then yada yada yada. I think when you don't have those E3s, you can easily fall into the, okay, well, I'm only paying attention to the AAA games that are like being presented at these big shows, and you're doing a lot less of like, you're just booking appointments, and it's like, oh, I'll try this little game out. Like, you don't get that like face-to-face hands-on time like you would at an E3.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. Like the smaller titles and smaller projects like this depend on social networking and hands-on impressions. And that will definitely be negatively impacted by the cancellation of E3. Whereas the big companies like Microsoft, Ubisoft, Square, like they'll be okay. I mean, they can hold their own live streams, and the information will get out there.
Even later this year, if they really wanted to, they can hold their own events. Like
I mean, you can have a bigger showing at Gamescom, and it's not really going to make much of a difference for them.
Right.
But yeah, the smaller studios and smaller projects will definitely be harmed, I guess, by the cancellation of E3, which is kind of in a broad scope. That's kind of what the cancellation of all these events, even outside of gaming, that's the negative impact it really has, due to concerns over the coronavirus. Like South by Southwest, for example. Will there be a South by Southwest next year? Who knows? But for right now, like the city of Austin, a lot of those small businesses depended on the influx of tourists and the revenue front that music festival generated.
Right.
So not having that show this year will directly negatively affect those businesses, and much in the same way that like not having E3 will impact indie projects and behind the doors fan things that like PR people and executives have their ear to that fans may want, and they can push for behind the doors in conferences. That probably won't happen.
Yeah, it's like, I mean, our like conference press, like our conference like focus on stuff is basically going to be the only thing this year. Whereas like that was one part of E3, but that's a part of E3 that could easily just happen at Gamescom, like you said. And it would, for us, it'd be no different. We're just watching a bunch of trailers basically back to back to back. But with Gamescom being like such a big fan focus, like none of these other events are as equipped as E3. Even with E3's like changes, E3 is still the best equipped to have. If you are some small developer, you can get Easy Allies, Kind of Funny, all these other ones or whatever. You could potentially, you at least have the chance to have that hands-on. You can get press to like notice your game, and it starts to blow up. And like, I definitely think that is something that like if E3 just goes away entirely, I slightly worry about like nothing filling that void. And this year is definitely going to be a case of that. And I agree that obviously this is like a weird year for all this to happen right when consoles are coming out, and these events were like it's going to be weird because like probably a lot of press people aren't going to be able to get their hands on like the Xbox Series X until August,
Yeah.
September.
Yeah, there's logistics of how do you handle getting all those impressions out there to people. If you can't have, I mean, forget like not having E3, but if you can't have large conferences just in general, depending on how bad this gets, like how difficult will it be to have all these, next Xbox Series X's and have somebody go to journalists and sit down with them and have like really small one-on-one or, small group. That's a lot. That's an expense. That's a lot of logistics to figure out.
And that's what, while E3 is expensive, at least you had the whole industry in one place. So that like you pay the money to get there, and then like all these different sites and people can get their hands on this next console that you're doing or whatever. If Xbox does something like their own thing outside of it, you're not going to get the audience that E3 did. Like as far as press, that's never going to happen. You can invite people from everywhere. It's just E3 is just monumentous. And yeah, I mean, it presents interesting problems for them. I think, again, overall, I think they'll be okay because they will get it in press's hands, even if it's the fall and it's like a lot later than it normally is. I don't think that like the console sales will suffer much because of this. I think plans have to be changed. Xbox, I mean, everyone's losing money off of this. The entire economy is going to get worse because of this. So we're going to see effects of this everywhere. Obviously, video games are a very small part of the overall effect. But yeah, I don't know. It's interesting.
Yeah. I guess now we could go to, since we kind of mentioned obviously the digital events and all that, what do we expect, I guess, each company to do, or how we expect these digital events like Microsoft and Ubisoft specifically potentially to unfold, and what do we expect to have? And
the easy one, I don't expect Nintendo to change like at all, really, because they're going to do a Nintendo Direct. I'm sure they're going to do about the same Direct they would have done at E3.
Yeah.
And maybe they'll have some live stream Treehouse thing, but that's about the extent of that.
Yeah.
And then,
I was like you were saying, obviously the Direct will happen, and the Treehouse, they could easily make it work. They just stream it from their offices, and do that. And the most of the stuff they would get from E3, they'll get from that.
Yeah, Xbox is definitely the more interesting one.
Yeah, I am just very curious about, like, obviously all the Xbox, like the Microsoft's own stuff that they were going to show in this before all this happened, they will have in the digital event. You have to assume, like, what the plans for their own stuff are going to change. It's going to be interesting, like, how that affects, like, the third party stuff that they get.
Yeah, and I wonder if, because, Microsoft's conference the last, 3 years has been very third-party focused. Like, they'll show some of their own stuff, but it's pretty much just video games, the conference. You're getting stuff that's multi-platform, stuff that's all over the place. I wonder if, do you guys think that if Xbox holds their own digital event, do you think all those third parties will still flock to that? Will those different publishers say, okay, well, this is going to be streamed on the official Xbox account. That's a lot of people. We're going to put our same game that we had at E3 there. Or do you think it's going to be lessened?
I think it depends on the company. I can see because this happened a lot where Ubisoft, for example, would have a game of theirs in Microsoft's conference, and then stay tuned for more during our conference, and that kind of stuff. I can see potentially Ubisoft not putting as much into that and just holding it more for their own event. Maybe seeing stuff like that, but stuff like Bandai Namco, I don't see that changing. In fact, I can see it being the opposite effect, where they're hey, can you just add one more thing from us in there? Yeah. Because people are probably not going to be looking for trailers as much that are not in the conferences, than they would if all this stuff didn't happen.
Yeah, it might cost them less to just be in Microsoft's, trailer reel rather than being at E3 and being in Microsoft's trailer. Again,
because this is going to affect the indies more negatively. I could see for Microsoft and Nintendo, this helps them maybe get some games. Again, depending who it is, it might make Microsoft lose a Ubisoft game, but Ubisoft is probably I'm actually just taking it from a show standpoint. The digital event for Ubisoft makes me feel better about it, because I feel like they might be what feels like less filler. Because Ubisoft conferences are usually pretty solid. They usually have a good lineup and decent lineup and all that.
Whatever Square Enix does is going to be trash.
I mean, probably, yeah. But for Ubisoft, maybe the digital event, they'll cut it, trim the fat.
Yeah.
More a solid presentation. Maybe the same thing with Bethesda.
Will there be a Just Dance dance thing, but on video instead of live?
Probably.
They're going to shoot a whole music video now. They're going to be like, all right, we're going all
now,
in.
if they made a video in game engine thing where they had their characters dancing to it, that'd be cool.
They make an in-game audience.
Yeah.
We have an AI audience that's cheering for us.
Yep, and based off the tech in Watch Dogs Legion.
It's all of the Watch Dogs Legion's NPCs. Like, is the old granny out there like cheering?
Yeah. Trying to...
Did you have the WB stuff like in a different separate story?
Nope, I got it right here. It's just some stuff I got just kind of up. I'm going to be reading just from my phone.
Because I do think that is interesting.
Oh, no, yeah. I was definitely going to bring it up. So Jason Schreier posted this after all this news. I'll just read a tweet. More news from me. Warner Bros. Games was planning to do an E3 press conference this year for the first time to talk about Batman, presumably from WB Montreal, the Harry Potter game that leaked a couple of years ago that looked dope, and Rocksteady's games, among others. Remain to be seen what they'll do now. Now that is a conference.
Bummer.
That actually sounds like a pretty solid conference right there, just based on those 3 games.
Hell yeah, it was like a newcomer stepping in and they're like, all right, we got this shit. We got this shit this year.
Yeah, even if let's say we heard there was a Warner Brothers was going to do a conference, we probably would have been like, oh, they're announcing all the shit there.
Yeah. At least, even though we won't have this conference, we don't have the surprise, at least we know that Warner Brothers is finally cashing in on
all this shit, man.
That they've been building up for way too long.
Well, and also, the Easy Allies mentioned this in their podcast. They were like, with the Batman game specific, or maybe it wasn't them. I don't know, someone mentioned it. Might have been them. It's like, for Batman, okay, we don't have to worry about it, when is it coming? We don't have to keep on thinking everything's a hint to it being announced, right now. It's like, okay, it's going to be at E3, probably. And they might reveal it beforehand. Who knows? Yeah. People have done that, but... What was also exciting is the Harry Potter game. We knew it was going to be a little while. I thought it might have been even earlier, anything, and be longer. It could still be a little ways away. It's going to be a next-gen title for sure.
Yeah.
But I could have seen it not being even talked about this year. I could have seen it.
And same thing with Rocksteady's game. I was like, does that Batman game was coming? I was like, okay, maybe Rocksteady thing is farther
Jacob,
away.
are you a Harry Potter man?
I think everybody. I mean, I think most people were at some point in their lives. I'm not so much anymore, but I'd play a Harry Potter game depending on what it was about.
If it was it was a really good one where it's you can walk around Hogwarts, and Hogwarts is a place you could actually explore.
Yeah, I'm trying to remember because it's been a while since I looked at this.
I played those old PlayStation 1 games.
Oh, I did too.
I'm trying to remember the details because I don't think I've actually read the details since we talked about it on the podcast. But I remember it being it's taking place before the events of actually Harry Potter. It's just more it's in the world of Harry Potter, and that had me more excited than
it's
playing a Harry Potter story.
I completely agree. They said it was in the 1800s, so it's okay, that's really far removed, different. So that's cool with me.
Yeah.
Just completely
the whole create a character thing and all that kind of stuff. Probably
sounds dope to me.
Yeah.
I'm not the big. I only read through the 4th book and watched through the 4th movie for some reason. That's where I stopped in both of them. But the Harry Potter world could be really cool. So that's exciting. Obviously, we're still going to get all those announcements. It's just not going to. It might still be in one big conference.
They might do their own digital event thing because obviously we weren't supposed to know this stuff. They were planning on doing this, so they might do it, or they might be like, "Hey, Microsoft, take this shit."
Yeah.
They just show up. It's Warner Brother again.
Yeah.
And then, the Rocksteady was in there, right? So we're finally going to see whatever the fuck Rocksteady's in there.
Well, I think it's safe to assume, there have been rumors of this, it's not a Batman game. You don't announce 2 Batman games at once.
And they straight up said it's not a Superman game, unless they lied. But
I saw rumors about being a Suicide Squad game. Those rumors have been going on a while. I don't know if I want that.
But we've seen so many rumors. I don't really know what to believe it.
We're so focused on DC, it may not even be DC related. It might be our own original IP, which I'm not against.
It is Conquer's Bad Fur Day. I hate to tell you guys.
Man.
It is.
So it is going to be an Xbox conference.
One can only hope.
So
crossover with that. All right.
Yeah. Anything else to talk about this E3 stuff?
You got any more lingering thoughts?
That's about that.
Okay, so I do want to bring out one thing that's kind of related to this with all this cancellations and stuff. what do you guys think about the odds that next-gen consoles are getting delayed to next year? I think it's pretty likely at this point.
Yeah, I think it's pretty likely too, depending on the situation in China, where a lot of manufacturing goes on.
The only thing that like makes me slightly more optimistic is China is more on the end of the cycle than we are. Like we're kind of at the beginning, they're at the end. I mean, there's still like a lot of cases, and also you can't completely trust everything the Chinese government and media tells you publicly, but like it seems like China's on the tail end of this. That's the only thing that makes me think that maybe it still will. I do think at the very least there might be like shortages. Like I don't think it's going to be as well stocked as a normal console release, but I could see both of them being pushed to like the spring, like around March-ish, like when the Switch came out. That's
going to be a very interesting thing. Like, use Ubisoft as an example, because we know stuff like Watch Dogs Legion is going to be cross-gen. That's going to kind of change their plans. They're probably going to push it as like a cross-gen thing. They were going to release it on this gen, so they'll just release it if it's done, obviously. But
yeah, that'll be weird, though.
But there'll be some games like Assassin's Creed or something, or maybe they had a game that was just going to be next-gen. Probably not, but probably all going to be cross-gen. But
they probably all were.
It messes up with a lot of things, and definitely Microsoft and Sony will not be happy because they would like to have those games like launching with the next-gen consoles.
It'll definitely hurt the next-gen sales if they're out for several months ahead of time.
We'll just see games pushed back because there are probably going to be some Microsoft and Sony. Well, okay, not Microsoft, sorry, because they said their stuff's going to be cross-gen for the next little bit.
Yeah, but like Horizon 2, if that is a thing that was going to
that will instantly have to be delayed even if it's done just for the console. And there might be some third-party stuff that would have been next-gen only.
Yeah, at this point, like PlayStation probably... like pretty soon, PlayStation and Xbox are both going to know if they have to delay these consoles, because I mean, people have talked about like the manufacturing for these usually start in like June. So they're going to know pretty soon if they have to do that or not. So for something like Horizon 2, it probably will get delayed. We'll never know that it got delayed, and we probably will not have even heard about it.
I mean, if they announce the delay for the console and it just comes out the launch day or whatever game is a launch thing for the PS5, be like, okay, it got delayed. We know this. But
yeah, I'm not as confident that they will be delayed. I definitely think it's definitely in the cards. It definitely could be likely, but I suspect that they'll find a way to get it out. I just think that
I could see, kind of like you said, it may not be delayed, but it might be major shortages where it's kind of a limited thing.
Yeah, and it depends too on like how bad this gets in other countries too. You know, do we get to the point where offices in the United States are closing because people just can't be in an office in that type of situation? It's really, or in Europe too, where it's really getting bad. You know, how, at what point in the manufacturing to the marketing to development, like at what point in that chain does it eventually just get to the point to where what link in that chain breaks into where you can't put out consoles? That's what I'm wondering.
It's kind of just going to go off of what you said, the marketing. I wonder if because they're not going to be able to get in the hands of people as much, at least for a while, they're going to be like, okay, we're not going to be able to market this as much, so they might push it back on that grounds alone. I don't think they would, but I don't think that's out of the realm of possibility.
But they're also doing the same thing that they one of Sony, I think it was Sony, pretty much straight up said that like they're kind of waiting for their own price to see what Microsoft does. Basically, they have this arms race. So I'm sure part of this delaying is like if they can help it, they really don't want to delay, because like one of them doesn't want to delay and then the other one stays in fall. Because that could really hurt whoever. Like consoles coming first tend to help a lot. Same that happened with the 360, right?
Yes,
360 came out a good bit before.
Yeah.
So I'm sure they're both kind of like looking at each other like, I don't. No one wants to press the button first. Everyone's like
the delay or price button. They're waiting each other out. Okay. Just one more thing before we move on for E3. Just kind of a little thing. Do we think for all these digital conferences they're going to be during the week of E3 is supposed to be, or will they all be consolidated still, or will they be like spread out throughout the month?
I think probably spread out. So whoever comes that week can kind of hog the spotlight. That makes sense to me. So
Yeah, I think they're all going to
out.
be in the May, June-ish area, and I think like something like Xbox might take the same week that they normally do. But some like if you're WB or Square Enix or something, it's like why should if we can elect to do another time, why should we do the
it's also going to be an interesting thing specifically for the third parties. They kind of in a way have to coordinate with Microsoft because of next gen plans. Mm-hmm. They kind of got to be on the same page as far as what's being shown first and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah, I think like the majority of the stuff will probably still be that week, but there'll definitely be some extraneous things in other weeks. But it is interesting. I mean, it's kind of uncharted territory. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. And there's also the whole thing of ESA still trying to put together the whole digital experience. Yeah. So it's also like, will Microsoft and that stuff be involved? Like, what exactly?
Xbox might not really have their own stream. It might be tied to the ESA and E3, and it might still be on the E3 Twitter or not Twitter, Twitch.
It what's still weird about that is technically conferences aren't related to the ESA or E3 at all.
No,
they're just always at that time. It's just a weird thing.
It is weird. It's like the big game. You can't say the word E3. You gotta yeah. Well, now that we got that out of the way, it's game time. Game time. And sorry, Jacob, but me and Jeff are gonna go first.
That's all right.
Because we've been looking forward to Ori and the Will of the Wisps for a very, very long time. Yeah. And me and Jeff talked before this, and we are pretty much both like we played separately from each other. And we're both at pretty much the exact same point.
Yeah, which I was surprised. I figured Darby farther because he's had a lot more time to play.
Jeff just plays games like insanely fast, and I guess I play games pretty slow. Like I'm not even dying a lot. Like I really have not died that much or had much trouble. I guess I just take my time. But like, yeah, I thought like, oh yeah, I've played a good bit. And I talked to Jeff, and Jeff's like, oh yeah, I really haven't played that much. I'm at this point. And I'm like, that's literally where I'm at. Okay.
Wonderful.
So like,
wonderful.
To Jeff, that's not much. To me, it is. I just can't sit down and play games for like freaking 5 hours at a time. I just can't do that. But
I love it.
Anyway, I'm loving this game.
Oh yeah.
It's so good. It's so good. I mean, it is very much like if you played the original Ori, you know what you're getting into. In a lot of ways, it's like that game didn't end and kept going, or it's more like you start that game over because you're building up your like abilities.
Yeah, well, at least for the ability, the old abilities you're getting them at a faster rate.
Oh yeah. It definitely treats it kind of like you've played this before, and they're like, hey, you remember this? All right, you got that. Remember this? All right, you got that. Now let's start building up.
Yeah. And even one of the things that I just got recently is like, it's an item that's related to your the feather. It's like there's a story reason why you got this now, and not, it's a lot more.
But I don't want to undersell it because
this is a secret about every way.
Yes, yeah. The stuff they did add really, really impacts the gameplay, and there's a lot more like progression stuff now where you can like choose different abilities in a pretty big like tree or something. And usually every time, at least me, whenever I visit the shop where you get that stuff, I can only buy like 1 or 2 things at a time, so it's kind of like you have to make decisions that way. But like this studio is just so damn good at platforming. Like that platforming is just addicting. Like every section you go to, even when you're good. Even retreading ground, because like Metroidvania is one of the things that I can get annoyed with when Metroidvania is when you're like retreading ground and nothing new is happening. A lot of times you're just like having to do the same thing over and over again. In this game, you retread ground a lot, but almost every single time I retread that ground, I had a new ability that completely unlocked a whole new section of the map. Or like the first time you went through, you had to do this whole big gauntlet of going through all this. And the second time, you're like, oh, I have this new ability. You just like shoot your way through it. That's just so satisfying. You know?
Yeah, and I like it. Yeah, when you're retreading ground, a lot of the times when you get a new ability, it's like, oh, I can do that here now. And okay, it makes you want to go back. And with the way the map's set up, it's easy to know where exactly you haven't been on the map. So, and I'm trying to remember. I think they changed the fast travel system to where you can do it anywhere. So that makes the whole going back and doing all that kind of stuff a whole lot easier, and less time consuming. That's really nice.
Yeah, and there's like just enough save points where it's still like, you gotta go or warp points and stuff.
Yeah, warp points.
And then obviously on every other way, this game is one of the most beautiful games I've ever played. The same thing was true for the Blind Forest, and this one's just like stepping it up even more with just the variety of areas and just every single like little enemy and everything. And the soundtrack is like a freaking... The visuals and soundtrack are legitimately Disney Pixar levels, which is crazy because this is such a tiny team.
Yeah.
That obviously has Xbox's backing.
And it's with like the opening cutscene and stuff, you quickly get like, okay. Like as far as like a graphical and power standpoint, it's like, this is the sequel. They're using that extra power.
It's just it's nice because I feel like I'm finally like my love and the reason why video games are my favorite hobby is finally speaking up again, because it's been a while since I've been like grabbed by a game like this, and unfortunately 2019 was just not a great year for me. But yeah, I'm adoring it.
That's
so
great.
much. No.
How's the what platform are both of you playing on?
Both playing on our laptops.
Yeah.
Okay. How's the performance? Because I've heard it can be a little rocky.
Yeah, I will. Yeah, I'll step in. Jeff can say his experience. 'Cause I think his has been slightly better than mine. But when I was playing, there is visually, there's really like there's a little bit of frame rate problems that I'm having here and there, but it's honestly pretty minor and like pretty sparse. The biggest thing is the audio. The audio, like pretty often will like spaz out. It'll be like in the middle of a song or something, and then it'll go like like it's like the audio is stuttering and skipping. And that honestly might be a problem that you don't see as much on the consoles, because apparently people on PC said, like, I have my games on my like not on the SSD, on the hard drive there or whatever, because my computer is just overloaded with podcast stuff. Right. So like I am hurting for space at all time. So I can't afford to put it on the SSD on the like, OS. And people said if you put it there, like you have that problem a lot less, because like it's just the game has the game reads it faster on that. That's not really an excuse, because you shouldn't have to do that. You should be able to download your games wherever on your computer, and it should just work. And I am far from the only person to have that. I look online, like everyone has this problem to a point. And I think Jeff had it too. Yeah.
But it sounds like it doesn't happen as often to me as Dario, but it does happen. It seems like there a lot of times when it happens, it's when there's a change in the music or something just kind of happens, or a character might start talking.
Unfortunately, it's like a lot of times it's like big orchestral, like sweeping music, and it's
Yeah, but it doesn't do like you just did. It just kind of comes in and out. Mine just kind of, it happens once and then it's just done.
Yeah, I mean, it's not that close together, but within one scene, it'll happen like 7 times. Yeah, and there's certain people I talk to that literally every time I press the button, it happens. Like, to move on to dialogue choice, it's just like every time I press the button. And again, like I think my computer's having problems, so that's part of it. But I've read a lot of other people had similar. Some people had worse problems, and I've seen people have like actual problems with the video, which I've had none really. Like aside from a few little like frame rate
visually, I mean, there probably like a handful of times little frame rate issues, but I don't know, nothing I can think of that was any real problems. But Darby, what about the addition of more combat? It's combat edition,
because that's I've talked mostly about the platforming being addicting, and honestly if it was just platforming, this game would still be phenomenal and I would recommend it to everyone. But no, it's a legitimately really good like 2D like action fighting game too, like like Hollow Knight kind of like blends those two. But I like this game, and I definitely understand why other people would prefer Hollow Knight. I like this game over Hollow Knight because while there is difficulty in this and it's like constantly engaging, the pacing is perfect, where like every obstacle you come to and every combat encounter you come to is like just hard enough to like make you sweat a little bit, but then you can get through it. You know, it's not... And also just with I'll come to times like you do in every Metroidvania where it's like I don't know where to go right now. I need to figure that out. In Hollow Knight, that's like 90% of my experience is where the fuck do I need to go? This game's telling me nothing. Ori, that's like 20% of the experience.
Right.
So you get that a little bit, but then once you push through and go, it's like, oh, okay, that makes sense. I see this there. Yeah. So it's like it reminds me of Shantae, where it's like it's taking this type of game that I kind of like, but I don't like the hardcore versions of it. It's like this is just the Darby amount. This is good.
Darby, did you unlock the hammer?
No.
Oh, Darby.
I've heard people talking about the hammer in this game.
I saw that on there. I bought something else.
The hammer, man. Well, plus
Gotta get on that.
Also, from what it looks like, the hammer is the only way you can like knock down through the floors.
Like the breakable bridges?
Yeah.
You can just send someone's ball, like if an enemy shoots a ball at you can launch it down at them.
Oh, yeah. I've just been using the hammer.
I've yet to come to a bridge that I couldn't get through.
Okay, okay. I think what happened with me, I just end up using the hammer for it.
Yeah, I didn't know you could use the hammer, but
I think I had locked it before I got that. So that was my way of doing it and getting to it a little early.
I've never gotten to a bridge that I couldn't get through.
Yeah. Okay, yeah.
Because of that.
And also, Darby, something else. A lot more NPCs in this game.
Yeah, the story is obviously super light. I mean, it's whimsical and like nice. I'm not criticizing the story. That's not what the game's about, and it's not even that the story is bad. It's great for what it is. It's very much a like kind of warm, happy Pixar thing. Like characters get in trouble and it's really sad. You know they're gonna be okay. You're pretty sure they're gonna be okay.
Cute animals in the forest type of story.
And I mean, it's just very like spiritual in a lot of ways, where it's like the grand light of this and all this other. It's cool. It works for what it is. Obviously, you're not playing this specifically for the story, but you definitely end up like that. It's very early. The whole like tribe of like monkey people or whatever that live in here, like you love them by the end because they're adorable and they're like
Yeah, I read from the head of Moon Studios that pretty much like so people like the characters we did have in the Blind Forest, so they're like, let's just add more, man. Just kind of as a way to like, they kind of listen to the criticism or things people wanted from Blind Forest, maybe more like the combat or maybe more character/story, and I was like, let's throw that stuff in here and see how that goes. Yeah,
it really is. It's the Blind Forest, but more, and it's the like just right amount with the sequel that they did not change. They didn't try to fix what wasn't broken, but they also like looked and they like quickly gave you everything you had there, and it's like, okay, now how can we add on to this experience now? And I could see people just immediately like gut reaction saying this is way too much like the Blind Forest, but once you get into it, you like, this is gonna be like when you go back and replay them, you're gonna want to play this one because of the a lot of this, and it's addicting, and that's something that I can't say. Like, there's a lot of platformers where it's like, I need to take a break from this for a while. With Ori, like, I want to barrel through this because every place I go, it's just really fun.
Everybody feels good when you can unlock that triple jump so early. Let's go, baby. Unlock that shit right away.
Yeah. And I'm excited because I'm like less than halfway through. So it's like they've already done so much. They've already done so much, and I have a whole another half of this game to go. So
cool.
Yeah, we got a lot more of the maps we're unlocked already. We're at the same place.
This map is already pretty big. But then they the thing that me and Jeff just got to, the objective points we saw, like we got several objective points, and you look on the map and they're all like way up into the black, and you're like, oh shit, there's that much of the map left to go in every direction? Jesus.
How long do you think this game is? About, do you have any idea?
For me, probably longer. I don't know.
It's...
Because obviously, like some of these can be pretty short. These Metroidvania type games can be pretty.
This one's definitely gonna be on the longer side of some. Compared to some
looking at it, as far as like doing most of the stuff, like exploring, it's looking like 20 hours.
Okay,
roughly.
Yeah, I mean, It's not like insanely long, but it's not gonna be like I beat Shantae in less than 10 hours.
Is it closer to Shantae, or is it more like Hollow Knight, which is very long?
Somewhere in between, I would say.
Definitely in between. Yeah, hour-wise, it's technically closer to Shantae, but it's still like double Shantae.
The Hollow Knight have like freaking 80 hours of content or something.
I feel like I've seen 40 is like the minimum.
Yeah.
Remember a lot of people.
Definitely nowhere near that. I think he's probably right. It's going to be like 20 for me. It'll probably be like the first one I looked on Steam and I beat it in 18 hours. And so this one's probably going to take me like 25 to 30.
Yeah, to give you an example,
like,
I played Blind Forest last year, and I played a version with more content. I think I finished it like 11 or 12 hours.
Yep, that's the difference between me and Jeff, the duality of man.
Well, cool. It sounds like a really good start to this kind of gauntlet of great releases in March and April after a pretty slow January and February.
This is the good thing about Final Fantasy VII being delayed is that I feel like I can just like play this at a good pace. I don't feel rushed to finish this week. You know, I can just kind of enjoy this.
Take it
Well, originally you weren't going to play it at all for a while.
Yeah, because originally I would be playing Final Fantasy VII right now.
Yep, and be done with The Last of Us.
And that timeline.
It's a good
one. And I think Jeff would agree. I think you can jump in and play this one right now, like without playing the Blind Forest. I mean, the Blind Forest is a great game. You should go play it. But you could jump into this, and it's not like you're going to be, I'm so lost. You know, you get like at the very beginning, even though you don't know the characters, you immediately get the dynamics and the relationships immediately because there's really no there's very little dialogue and really no dialogue between like the main characters.
Yeah, a lot more dialogue in this game with all the NPCs going on.
Yeah, but it's all like the characters you talk to, at least that main party. And then once you get past that first scene, the rest of it is all pretty new content. So I mean, you could jump into this game. In fact, I might recommend instead of you playing 2 full games, unless you want to. I mean, it's a good game. Both of them are good games. But
yeah. We'll say potentially for some things because it just adds so much more. It may feel weird going one of those situations where it feels weird to go back to the original of like if you played Will of the Wisps and then go back to Blind Forest.
You feel a little limited.
Yeah.
Okay.
Probably.
Makes sense.
Probably.
Because kind of like what Dari said, you get a lot of the movement options very early in this game, and why it takes you a good chunk of the game to get them in the first one.
Yeah.
So be weird to play all that and then you get into Blind Forest and you're waiting for those movement options being like,
yeah, I mean the best thing would be to play them both, but if if you didn't want to, I think you would be fine to jump into this one.
Well, that's cool because I mean we've had a lot. I mean, there's been a boom of Metroidvanias over the past few years, and it sounds like to me that Ori and the Will of the Wisp is a very good one of those and kind of stands out from others.
Definitely most beautiful.
I definitely think so. And presentation and soundtrack, it just stands out so much from like all games, and that's one thing that like. Yeah, the Metroidvanias, there's too many good ones that they all kind of run together, and it's hard to know what to choose at this point, which is crazy because that was the complete opposite problem a few years back. But
Ori helped kind of start that as far as like one of the first games to start this whole Metroidvania.
And Ori is a pretty like perfect one for me because the presentation and soundtrack, which is especially like music and just visuals, like art style, are like two of the things that I love the most in games. It can help make or break a game for me. That's all just out of this world, and then the platforming is phenomenal, just like Hollow Knight and the other ones. But this one has just the right balance between like difficulty and other things for me. It goes down real smooth.
Sweet.
Well, Jacob, what you been playing a little bit? We can discuss a little bit about what you've been playing.
Yeah, so I'm kind of in between games really at the moment, and that's because I finished very early in the week. I finished Yakuza 3, the remastered version. Yeah, so about a month ago, the Yakuza Remastered collection came out, and as a remaster of 3, 4, and 5, which are the games I was really waiting for those games to come to the PS4.
Yeah, so they're all on PS4 now, or at least the most recent version of them, right? From 0 through 6.
Yeah, you can play the entire series now on the PlayStation 4.
Nice.
Which is pretty sweet.
Nice.
And so I picked up Yakuza 3. And I do want to stress to people that these are remasters. They are not remakes like the Kiwami games.
Right.
So
a little more real.
Otherwise we call Kiwami thing.
Yeah. So they're up-res and they run at 60 frames per second. But I mean, they're very clearly when you jump into Yakuza 3, like, oh yeah, this is an old game.
Yeah.
And it takes a second to get used to it, but I still found it pretty easy to adjust to the game. It's still, Yakuza 3 being the first of that series on the PlayStation 3. It's pretty clunky. And the gameplay is probably the most limited of all the Yakuza games that I've played. But and the menus are also really kind of old school and kind of difficult to navigate, but I still enjoyed the game, which was pretty surprising Because when I look at when people rank the Yakuza games, and I see it seems that the general consensus is that Yakuza 3 is typically towards the bottom of the series to a lot of people. But I personally like this. I'd probably rank it over. I definitely rank it over Kiwami 1 and probably over Yakuza Kiwami 2.
Nice.
I like the game a lot. It's I think what turns people off from it. So pretty much the setup to this game is that at the end of Yakuza 2, Kiryu is the series protagonist. He's done pretty much, everything that he can to ensure that the Tojo clan, which is the clan that he used to belong to, he's done everything he could to make sure it's stable. He's found somebody to take over as chairman that he personally trusts. And so he's like, look, I can't stay in Kamurocho. Every time I'm here, there's like trouble. My adoptive daughter, Haruka, she's been kidnapped like 4 times already.
It's like taken up
yeah.
here.
So I just need to get the hell out of Dodge. And so he packs up and he moves to Okinawa, where he sets up an orphanage. And so really for the first quarter of Yakuza 3, you're in Okinawa and you're running an orphanage as Kiryu, and you're watching over the different orphans that he's taking care of. And so you really start to see the origins of Kiryu as a father figure and his kind of paternalistic nature, which if you're someone like me who started the series with Yakuza 0 and then went to Kiwami and Kiwami 2, that's not really an angle of his character that you have really seen as of yet. And that's honestly my favorite part of the game is the first quarter where, there's not a lot of combat going on. There's not a lot. It's very slow paced and you're really just helping these kids and kind of teaching them he's teaching them life lessons. And it's really endearing and wholesome. And I really like that part to it. Eventually, he gets dragged back to Kamurocho and there's a big crazy Yakuza style plot, which is pretty over the top even by Yakuza standards.
Nice.
So, and I think that part is definitely the weakest element to it. And I can see where a lot of people would probably not like the very slow beginnings of Yakuza 3 and kind of taking care of those kids, because it's a lot of just talking to people. At one point you got to go play golf to schmooze up to this politician. Nice. Which is amazing.
But I bet Yakuza is kind of like watching a really long, super good TV show that you're invested in, because you've just spent so much time with Kiryu.
Yeah.
Versus any other game you just spent, because there's freaking 6 games,
Yeah, there's even a very small, amazing scene in the very beginning of the game where it cuts to him after he's moved to Okinawa. He's been running this orphanage for about a year, and he's making curry, and he's very painfully slowly chopping the onion, and that shows that he has no skills in the kitchen because he's been a member of the Yakuza for a long time.
Yeah.
And I also like about this game is how it does hint at and it points at, it's Kiryu is one of the quotes one of the good Yakuza, but even then what he did when he was the captain of the Dojima family was not, he still hurt people. He still exploited people for their money. There's an amazing sub-story, or not really a sub-story, but a little scene where you're running around downtown, the downtown town in the downtown part of the town in Okinawa, and there's this guy. He's going to jump off the railing and into the river. He's going to commit suicide because he was pretty much, he took out a bad loan and now he has to repay all that money. And Kiryu's like, whoa, don't do that. And he gives them very detailed practical advice on how to handle bankruptcy. And the guy's like, how do you know all about this? And he's like, oh, I know a thing or two about loans and money lending and debt collecting. And it's you can tell what he did, he's not necessarily proud of. And
but he's maybe using some of that to do good now.
Absolutely.
It reminds, obviously maybe not as sad and emotional and everything, but reminds me of Arthur Morgan towards the end of Red Dead Redemption 2, where it's he's done terrible things and he's kind of trying to make up for it.
Yeah. So I liked it a good bit. which surprised me. I'm really excited to move on to Yakuza 4, but I know I'll probably wait on that.
So you haven't played 4, 5, or 6 at all?
No, not yet. Yeah. I'm excited to move on to 4 because there are new major characters introduced in that game. You're not just playing as Kiryu, and I think that's yeah. And I'm pretty excited for that, to see that development.
Sweet.
Yeah,
that's cool. Cool.
Well,
one day I'll get further into the series. I was really enjoying Zero. I need to get back.
When's Yakuza 7?
Yeah, who knows?
I know it's out now in Japan.
You gonna be called up by the time Yakuza 7 comes out?
Hell no. Definitely not. These games are great, but they're not games I would recommend binging at all.
Yeah, you need some time.
You need some time in between them. And then after I beat Yakuza 3 for a while, I was kind of trying to find what game I wanted to play next. And I picked up Kentucky Route Zero.
Ooh, yeah. I want to hear about that.
Yeah, which is a game I kind of played a little bit of it back in January, but then I kind of got sidetracked and I dropped it. I picked it up again last night and I played through the first 2 acts. So now at the start of Act 3. And I really, really like this game. It's really, the first act is very slow, but I think once you get to Act 3 or Act 2, you're in, I feel like the game really picks up and it really grabbed my attention.
From what I've heard about the writing, it sounds very interesting. So about how long is every act? 'Cause I know they've been coming out since like 2013 or something like that, right?
Yeah.
Just slowly.
I would say every act probably about an hour to an hour and a half.
Okay.
Depending. And then there's little interludes that are probably like 20 minutes, if that, in between each act.
Are these like separate things that you have to get, or is it all like you get Kentucky Route Zero and it's just like all these parts, or like?
I bought the game when the complete TV edition when it came out in January. I don't know what it's like for people who have bought parts, over the years.
Gotcha. All right. Well, anyway, yeah.
Yeah. I really like this game a lot. I think it's a very well written game. There's a lot of amazing lines that kind of speak out to me that are not like they're well written in a non-obvious, like trying to be superfluous, or oh, look at all these fancy verbs that I use or adjectives that I use. It's well written in the sense of how it kind of addresses the scene. So the game is a 2D kind of adventure game. It's really more of like a text adventure in a way, but it's not like you're really making choices. You're not really making, you're not really like pixel hunting or solving puzzles necessarily. It's more just kind of taking in the atmosphere this game is weaving in the story that it's telling. And it's kind of this magical realist adventure, which is pretty much it's set in an ordinary, middle Kentucky, but it has these kind of fantasy elements to it. So the whole premise of it is that you play as a middle-aged guy named Conway, who's a delivery driver for an antique company, and he's trying to find this address. And so he stops at a gas station and he asks the guy at the gas station, he's like, hey, do you know where this address is? Because I've been driving all up and down the highway trying to find it. And he's like, oh, well, you can't get to this address through normal means. You have to go through this highway called Kentucky Route Zero, which is a highway through a cave system. And it's very, the game is very, I don't want to say surreal, but it kind of has that surrealist kind of journey quality to it.
Like, is there a literal story that's going through it, or is it kind of more ambiguous than that?
Well, so he points you to this one place, and you eventually you meet up with this other character in Act 1 called Shannon Marquez, who is looking for her sister, who you also spoke to just a little bit ago. And so Conway and Shannon are kind of going on this adventure to try and find this address still at where I am in the story. And one thing leads to another. You come across different people, but really it's a game about to me it's a game about debt and the impact debt can have on somebody, and the kind of shame that goes along with that. There's a lot of talk about, my family built this house, And one reason that this character Shannon is looking for not her sister, her cousin Weaver Marquez, is because she went to school for math, and then her family kind of built this house, and then she later realized how much in debt they were, and she just kind of disappeared. And so she's looking for her cousin in that way. And yeah, it's a very I think the main character Conway is kind of also reckoning with his past as well. There's not like a strong like pulling narrative, but it's kind of more of like touching on different aspects, I think, in these people's lives and in the situation that they are in.
Cool. Yeah, this is one I've been wanting to get to. It's probably one I should have gotten to in this like drought period that I've been playing. There's a lot of games like that. But I kind of have heard, I guess because a new act just came out recently, I just heard a lot of people like revisiting this and talking about like, hey, we don't talk about how good this game is enough, you know?
Yeah. Going back to how well written it is. I mean, there's this one scene where you're kind of poking around this house, and it's like, there's a frying pan seasoned with dust and stuff like that really sticks out to me. Or the Shannon character, at one point she is describing how this other character Weaver told her how her father was in a car wreck, and they would be hearing the ramifications of that car wreck for years to come. And of course she's like, I got really upset. And then her dad came in, and apparently he had been at like the junkyard finding scrap metal for wind chimes. So it's kind of like Weaver, and the whole idea is like, Weaver never lies or something like that. It's a really Darby, what's your favorite Coen Brothers movie?
Freaking the George Clooney.
Oh Brother Where Art
Oh Brother Art Thou.
There's a lot of Oh Brother Where Art Thou kind of esque moments in this game.
I think Oh Brother Where Art Thou is literally my favorite movie of all time. I was just blanking on the freaking name for a second. Yeah, that's my favorite movie of all time.
Yeah.
Sorry.
Yeah, there's a lot of like kind of Oh Brother Where Art Thou kind of moments in this game too. I really like it. It's not a game that it's kind of difficult to talk about, but it is really. It's a game of atmosphere and writing, and there's a lot of references, I think, to literature too.
Nice,
especially of the magical realist genre. So really, really cool game. I'm excited to continue with it.
Pulling out the name of Oh Brother Where Art Thou is definitely a way to get Darby interested.
Yeah, and it's cool too because you don't really see the American South really depicted in video games all too often.
Not really, yeah.
And I think it handles that setting, I think, very lovingly in a way.
I've also heard people like I listened to Kotaku Split Screen. They were talking about like going straight from Disco Elysium into Kentucky Route Zero was a very really interesting experience.
It's a lot of same issues but different perspectives on those topics.
Yeah. Cool. Well, yeah, I definitely want to hear more. You finished what act? What act
2, so I'm on Act 3 now.
And when the last one they put out, just 4 or 5 or something? Yeah.
Act 5, which is the final act, came out in January. And that came out alongside, hey, you can buy this game in a complete version on consoles now.
Nice.
So I'm playing it on the Switch.
I think it's on Switch.
Yeah, that's where I'm playing it.
Switch. Cool. Alrighty. Well, Jeff, let's move on through the rest of this news and get her done.
Jingle, jingle, jingle.
2 news jingles in 1 episode.
Yep. Okay, first thing. Well, second news thing. Call of Duty got a battle royale.
But I already had one.
It has a new one.
Oh, okay.
I would have believed you if you just said that it already did.
I mean, they technically already did, but yeah. It is free to play. There are 2 different modes in it. A normal 150-person battle royale.
That's 50 more than the other ones.
Yeah, that means it's better.
Yep, more people equals.
Oh, they're also.
I can't wait until 2030 when we have 5,000 player battle royales.
There's also cash in this game, which you can collect in exchange for equipment, field upgrades, kill streaks, or revive tokens. What is this shit? Okay.
Cool.
And this all comes from Matt Kemp from IGN.
I think this next part actually sounds pretty cool.
What?
I mean, the part that you haven't read yet.
The gulag,
gulag.
where people that have already been eliminated can fight other eliminated players for a chance to revive in a 1v1 winner takes all gunfight.
I think that's a really cool answer to the whole, like, you know, you die and then it's like, all right, well, now I have nothing to do, or you just move on to another game or something. Like, I think that's kind of a cool, unique twist on the, like, battle royale. The thing that you die and then you go in and then you're in this, like, 1v1, like, brutal thing or whatever, and then you can fight your way to get back into the game. I think that's pretty cool.
Oh yeah, I think that's cool. I think using the in-game currency to buy revive tokens I don't like that.
Is it? Oh, so it's just okay. I thought this was like currency within a battle. Like
that's what I heard.
That's what. Are you sure it's currency as far as like is like V-Bucks? Because I thought it was more like.
Well, I mean, just in general. I don't know if it's like V-Bucks or whatever. Just in general, getting things to get revive tokens. A good lot of things cool, but like, I don't know.
I'm fine with it if it's like however, if you get money inside the round and then you choose to spend it in different ways. Like revive tokens, one of them, or you could spend that money to get some crazy awesome weapon. And it's like, you know, I will die for real if I die, but I have this crazy weapon. Like, I guess we don't know enough about it, but like if that is how it goes, like that doesn't bother me. If it's like in the battle money,
I got a feeling it's not.
If that money is like V-Bucks and stuff, then that sucks. Because like if someone just plays forever and ever or buys a bunch of Call of Duty bucks, then they could just buy a bunch of revive tokens. But I mean, maybe it's because I don't pay attention to Call of Duty, but I feel like if that's the way that it was, I feel like I would be seeing a lot more people like screaming on the internet. If that's how that worked. So I kind of have my doubts that that's how it works. But obviously, we're not Call of Duty players at all. We don't know enough to really be talking about it.
Yep. So a second mode called Plunder is a new large-scale mode where teams race to collect as much cash as possible. They do this by raiding supply boxes, eliminating opponents, and some other crap.
Okay, then okay. Well, that tells you cash is in game. Cash is like inside the game. Then it's not V-Bucks. Okay, so we good. Yeah, honestly, I think this sounds cool. I mean, like, I don't play battle royales, but like for people who do, this sounds like it's doing some interesting things that other battle royales don't. You know?
Yeah, I like the gulag idea. That's really cool. If you get eliminated, putting two players on a very even playing ground and letting them duke it out and see which one comes back. I think that's a really novel idea.
I feel that could be really hype, especially if it's like hard to get through. If it's just, like only one person comes out of the gulag, so it's like, all right, well, let's freaking go. Yeah, I think that's really cool.
Also, there's crossplay between PC and consoles.
Sweet, definitely big. That's happening more and more just immediately. So this is part of Modern Warfare, or is this? Okay, I thought it was like free to play.
Yeah, it is free to play.
It's a separate thing. So you can get this without having Modern Warfare. So that's cool. Mm-hmm. It's kind of like what we were talking about, like if Call of Duty would just make Battle Royale a separate thing, because that was one of the things like for Black Ops last year. Like, it was popular for a little bit, but it was never going to stand up to Fortnite because you had to buy a $60 game to get it. And there's a lot of, especially young, like 12-year-olds and stuff, they just want to play the Battle Royale. They don't want this other stuff or whatever. And if Fortnite's free to play, they're just going to play that. Or Apex. So I think this is what they had to do if they wanted to legitimately compete with the other ones. And I do wonder now I guess there's just going to be two different Call of Duty things going at once. There's going to be the main games yearly, and then also this Warzone separately, which is the way smarter way to do it if you're going to do this Battle Royale.
Yep. Oh, yeah. Also, we got some numbers. Numbers as far as downloads and stuff to see how this is taken off for comparison's sake. This comes from Daniel Ahmad. Number of Call of Duty Warzone players after 1 day, 6 million. 3 days, 15 million.
Jesus.
Number of Apex players after 1 day, 2.5 million. 3 days, 10 million. And then it goes on for 1 week and 4 weeks. 4 weeks, after 4 weeks, Apex had 50 million. And for Fortnite Battle Royale, not really a great comparison considering how early that was a Battle Royale, but it took them 2 weeks to get to 10 million players. And then 6 weeks for 20 million.
Yeah, obviously.
I just kind of had that thing on there because he had it on there, but I don't think that's a really great comparison.
Apex is, though. Apex
is a much better point of comparison.
Yeah. Yeah, no, that's pretty big.
Yeah, sounds like it will do quite well for them.
And kind of they did the as far as releasing it or whatever, kind of the same thing, where it's just suddenly, boom, it's out, free to play. Here's some influencers.
Yeah, I mean, it's funny that kind of same thing worked twice, where Apex and this, but I mean, that seemed like a smart way to do it, where just like suddenly this existed.
Yep.
And honestly, it sounds like they're doing things different enough that, you know, I could totally see how this sounds interesting.
Yeah, got a lot of money pumped into it.
And despite how big like Fortnite is, I mean, Call of Duty is always going to have kind of like a mind share of whatever type of shooter genre it decides to tackle, and
well, whatever it does, it has a leg up, and just like people know that brand, so there's going to be a certain amount of people that just jump on it
absolutely
immediately, regardless.
Well,
like they don't have to build it up as much. Like Fortnite was a crazy build up success story, whereas like Call of Duty kind of starts several like the 50-yard line. You know?
Yeah, and what I was saying is from a very U.S. mindset or whatever, because I'm not going to mention really PUBG in this comparison stuff, but I know it's bigger like everywhere else. But it's kind of nice for I guess I would say the three of the big ones, Fortnite, Call of Duty, and Apex, where they're kind of different spots as far as like how realistic, cartoony, whatever they are. Like Call of Duty's the mixture of realistic military shooter. Fortnite's very cartoony. Apex is kind of a nice little middleman.
Yeah.
Where it's kind of realistic, but also these kind of cartoony
and
type
just
characters.
Even gameplay wise, I feel like we're a really pretty good spot for these battle royales, where like they're all popular, but like Fortnite has the building mechanics, they're completely unique. Apex has the like Overwatch style hero abilities, they're completely unique, and now this Call of Duty has this like gulag and then the cash system, which to me actually sounds very interesting, because none of the other, you know, that sounds different. You know, Apex you find stuff, Fortnite you find stuff, but this is kind of cool if it's like, how are you going to spend your money, and that's where the strategy goes. It's the same thing like CS:GO and stuff has that too, where you like buy certain abilities.
How do you buy kill
things.
streaks?
And this is 3-person squads, am I correct in that?
I don't know.
I do. There are 3-person squads.
Okay.
It might have both
I don't know
modes.
if that's the default. No, like it's all 3-person like Apex
Right.
is.
Yeah,
Gotcha.
But
yeah, it might have both. I think they all have squads.
I watched the trailer and like, yep, this definitely had the Call of Duty budget, because they had seemed like a whole bunch of different stuff going, like helicopters and cars and just everything you could expect them to have in the game as far as that kind of stuff goes, and not just running around and gunning.
Do we know, was this one of the big 3 studios that made this? Do we know who made this? I'll look.
Okay. Yep. So yeah, this is gonna be big. This is gonna continue to be big, and we're probably gonna hear about more record-breaking numbers in the coming weeks and months, especially since coronavirus, because people are locked inside now.
Yeah.
It's a pretty good time for it. Infinity Ward.
Okay.
Okay.
I don't know who made this year's one.
I just know the names. I don't know who did what. And that is a sin as a video game podcaster, not knowing all the Call of Duty studios.
Shame.
Sledgehammer made the 2019 Call of Duty.
It makes sense that it wasn't, the one made 2019. You can't just pump out battle royales in a week, contrary to popular belief.
I don't know. I think you just hit the battle royale button.
Okay.
Like if they wanted to do that with Psychonauts, all they have to do is hit the battle royale button. It just becomes a battle royale.
Where's my Banjo Kazooie Nuts and Bolts battle royale?
We'll drive each other with our edgy cars.
Yep. I think the problem is it's not edgy enough. But you know what is edgy? Silent Hill.
It is edgy.
And Jacob.
I suppose.
Jacob's the edgiest man I know.
I'm spiky.
I'm worried about cutting myself.
Yeah, careful.
Okay, all the stuff I'm reading comes from Work Keegan from Rely on Horror. We got some Silent Hill rumors.
Ooh.
Spicy. It's one of those things, I don't really know this guy. I don't know what's like track record and everything, but it's one of those times where the rumors, it's a rumor that is picked up, and so a lot of people hear about it. I haven't heard the big guns immediately shoot it down like it does everything, like they do everything else that's not true.
Right.
So I'm just kind of like, okay, everyone's talking about this. Let's talk about it.
Let's hear them rumors.
Okay. So I got some general stuff in here, and if we need to, I can bring up some more details from the article. There are rumors of Konami working on 2 Silent Hill games with Sony. So you would assume they would be PS5 exclusives.
Right.
PS2 exclusives.
Exactly. Masahiro Ito, creature designer for the first 4 titles in the series, is working on the first one. Kiichiro Toyama, director and writer of the original 1999 Silent Hill, and Akira Yamaoka, composer for the majority of the series, also returning for that one. ISE Japan Studio, which possibly includes team members from Project Siren, the group behind Siren Blood Curse of PS3, will be behind its development in some capacity, either in full or in part. Now, the second one is a bit more interesting. The second one is still being worked out, but if it works out, Sony is trying to patch up the relationship between Konami and Kojima. So, trying to revive PT.
Silent Hills.
Right. Yeah. And that one is apparently, Sony is kind of pitching it to Kojima as more of a Telltale Supermassive narrative-driven title. So he can have full creative control.
So I guess, Jacob, where do you want to go? Do you want to first discuss what you think, how good these things sound, or do you want to discuss whether you think this is actually legit or bullshit?
Jada bullshit.
Jacob, take the wheel.
Sure. Yeah. I mean, this is very exciting because, I mean, as you know, like the last Silent Hill game, well, really, the last good Silent Hill game was Silent Hill 4, which is debatable to some. And then, that's a little not really. Shattered Memories was pretty good, but Silent Hill has during the 360 and PS3 era, Silent Hill was generally not a good franchise.
Yeah.
And then like the last one was Book of Memories for the Vita, and that's not even close to what a Silent Hill game should ever be.
Yeah. I don't really know anything about that.
It was.
I guess I also further they're looking at these games, at least especially the first one's more of a reboot.
Yeah.
Honestly, like far smaller titles and far like less recognizable names have gotten the remaster remake treatment recently. Yeah, it's like the only reason this hasn't happened with Silent Hill is because Konami is Konami. So the only reason.
Here's the thing that makes it sound like this could be plausible is the fact it wouldn't be Konami really making it. It'd be Sony, especially we imagine Sony be footing most of the bill, and Konami just kind of raking the checks from it. Which makes this more believable than Konami just making these games.
Right. As I say, there hasn't been a Silent Hill game in a long time. There hasn't been a good Silent Hill game in even longer. So I think it would be good for Konami to do something with the IP, because anything that's not remotely garbage would net them a lot of money, get a lot of interest.
The thing, like when I see the Kojima thing, I might immediately want like the red flags to go up. They would be like, "This is bullshit." But the thing that you just said is kind of what makes me think that it might be true. Is that if this is primarily a Sony project, this is like Konami, it literally just owns the title, so they're gonna get money off of it. But Kojima has been told you have creative freedom.
Yeah. Well, and again, the important thing is why it makes me think leans more to this being legit than normally is. Well, this isn't completely. At least the Kojima part is still apparently in talks, or at least the last they heard. It's not like Kojima is agreeing with it or anything. It's just kind of more Sony wants this to happen. This is Sony's plan for this if it comes to fruition, which. All the details we got here make sense.
Yeah, I think the Kojima thing does sound strange, at first glance, but I don't think it's not entirely weird. It's been several years since the whole Kojima Konami meltdown. Yeah, and time heals all wounds, and especially if that meltdown is to be believed it was over budget, then if Sony is footing the bill for this Kojima-led Silent Hill game, then they're probably. Wouldn't be a problem.
They let him have a huge budget to make Death Stranding, which is way less of a guaranteed cash cow.
Well, and they'd be able to market it off Sony specifically, but market it off PT. Yeah. And hey, that teaser at the end of PT, we're actually making it a reality. Get hyped.
It is weird. Is it weird that it almost feels too soon? It almost feels like that. Like I know that was several years ago, but it almost feels like Kojima went and made one game, and then now we might be going back to it. Like I mean, I'm down for it, but it's just like
I hear you, but it's also it's been years since that kind of happened or whatever, and it seems like Kojima was definitely in for the Silent Hill thing, so it might be again if this goes through, be like, well, I get full creative control. I'm not having to pay it out of our own pocket or whatever. It's Sony/Konami footing the bill. It's like, okay, let's just do this.
Yeah.
Let's give this another shot. And it might be a thing of, again, with Sony, Kojima's like, well, I don't have to deal with Konami that much.
Yeah.
It's not Konami that I'm really dealing with.
I feel like, Kojima would have to, I mean, especially after Death Stranding and everything. Like, I feel like if Kojima had any sense that he would not have full creative control and budget control and everything, I think he would say no, because he already did Death Stranding and he has this new studio. I think Kojima, if there was any like, oh, but you can't do this, Kojima would be like, all right, well, I'm out. I'm going to go make my own game. Peace. See ya.
Yeah, for sure.
Are you kind of also super interested in the like remake idea?
Yeah.
Well, it's not a it's not a remake. It's a reboot. They're talking about
right. Yeah. Well, but yeah, both of these projects sound really interesting to me. With the reboot one, which I imagine will probably be more in the vein of, I mean, who knows what it would look like, but I mean, you have all the right people for that project. Especially, you got Akira Yamaoka, Masahiro Ito, and then the director of the first game, I forget his name. But yeah, those are the right. Yeah, I mean, at least I know for Yamaoka, I mean, he's the composer, but I don't want to undersell the fact that he is very important for the identity of Silent Hill, even as just the composer. Like, he's very instrumental in that project, in that series. And he left the company several years back. So getting him back on board, I think, is a big get. And it makes me very excited. I'm curious as to what a reboot of the franchise would look like.
Would you want them to take any inspiration from RE2 remake?
Yeah, that's the big question. I don't necessarily think so. I mean, I would not complain, but I think if you're going to reboot Silent Hill, I think chasing what Capcom is doing with Resident Evil is not the right approach. I think you could do something.
I need Pyramid Head to be able to show up at any moment to chase me.
You just basically want it to be RE2 with a different skin.
Right. Yeah, I think just trying to copy that kind of style may not be what Silent Hill, I think, really needs. Mm-hmm. I think you could do something a lot more interesting with that.
And unfortunately, Silent Hill is coming out into a time that is full of every old IP coming back. Like Dino Crisis might freaking come back. I know that got canceled, but it might come back anyway. Yeah. So it kind of, and we're in such a good time of horror games for Resident Evil and just a bunch of other things. It does kind of have to have something to make it unique, which it had back in the day. And I really feel like the right team, especially people who worked on the original ones and people who are fans of the original ones, kind of like Final Fantasy VII Remake, I think you could definitely take the vibe, the very unique, like, I don't know, there's something uniquely terrifying about Silent Hill that could, like, or just unsettling about Silent Hill that I think you could.
Yeah, I mean, back in the day when Silent Hill 1 came out in 1999, it was kind of pushed as like the thinking man's Resident Evil. And I think, you can kind of take that approach again, kind of leaning into the atmosphere that series just naturally has, and doing really kind of left field kind of gameplay experiences. I mean, you can take pages from, other first-person horror games like Amnesia or Layers of Fear. I think you can incorporate stuff like that into a reboot, and it'd be very successful. And especially with Shattered Memories, which came out for the Wii and the PlayStation 2 towards the end of that PlayStation 2's life cycle. That game was a remake of the first Silent Hill 1. Mm-hmm. And so it had kind of a different aesthetic to it, and it did a lot of interesting things. The monsters that would chase you would change their shape depending on what the player fixated on and how they answered certain questions. So for example, if you were playing as the main character and you're walking around and you're kind of like staring at like, kind of sexy posters of ladies on the walls, the monsters themselves would kind of, have a more feminine appearance to them.
That is very interesting.
Otherwise, if you also fixated on like alcohol, they would also change their appearance too. So I think you could do interesting ideas like that into a reboot, and that would make it stand out from just trying to copy, the style of Resident Evil 2 remake.
Yeah.
And then I also think that a episodic thing is also a right move to go alongside the reboot. I think that an episodic thing led by Kojima of all persons, it would be a very fascinating project to see come to light.
Yeah.
Apparently, one of the rumors they got from this is that at least the Kojima one might make use of PSVR for the PS5. Give me PT and VR.
Don't know if this man over here is ready for that.
We'll put you in it anyway, Darby. now that we got the spoopy out of the way, let's get the nice and friendly and light and stuff.
Oh, Jeff, I forgot to tell you that I have a phobia of Legos.
Oh, shit. Shit, man. Well, I know you're also scared of plumbers.
I am. Oh no, Jeff, what's the next news story?
Lego Mario. Stuff from reading news, whatever, coming from Jonathan Dornbush.
I have laterophobia.
Is it the fear of Legos?
It's the fear of Legos.
Oh my god,
there is a word for it.
I mean, stepping on them is pretty painful. I'd be scared of them too.
There you go, everyone. Video version, laterophobia.
Nice.
Don't leave Lego Mario in the kitchen for your dad to step on at 3 a.m. Don't do it.
Okay, so yeah, they teased this earlier in the week, and then they shortly after officially announced it. Weird Lego Mario thing is neither a game or just straight up Legos. It's some kind of hybrid thing, I guess, where you have this Mario which has like screens for its eyes on its chest or mouth or whatever, that depending on what you do with the Legos or how you format it and put them on, he kind of reacts to it in different ways. So it's kind of like a real life Mario Maker thing, where you're putting it together and you're trying to go through the Mario levels, and I think you're timed on a lot of these. You're trying to do it as fast as you can and all that, and some of the other Legos, I think there's a Yoshi one, there's a Bowser Jr. and all that. You can make the place like there's lava, then there are Goombas and all that kind of fun stuff. Something a cute little thing.
That's really cool. It's
an experimental thing.
Yeah, that's cool. It's not just like a Mario thing. They're actually trying. I mean, just like Nintendo with Labo and everything else in the world, they're gonna try to make this whole new weird thing that you've never done before.
I'm gonna be honest. I was slightly hyped for a Lego Mario game.
That could absolutely happen. I mean, that could absolutely still happen. It could be
because Lego games can be really good, and potentially throwing Mario in that could be a lot of fun. So
I mean, Nintendo's getting a lot more open to letting third parties mess with their stuff. So that sounds like a Lego Mario game could be really good.
Yeah. So, but this thing seems neat to be a little cool thing for kids and collectors and all that. Nothing I'm particularly interested in, but again, the idea is cool and nice to see these two companies experiment with each other.
I agree.
Yeah, I'm curious if this will lead to maybe them doing other Nintendo things, like the Dio Zelda one they can throw into this stuff. Just have a little link.
Little sword that you could poke your eye out with.
Yep. Well, that was quick, so we're going on to the next thing. Kind of Nintendo related. Reggie is going to GameStop.
He's back.
You can't get rid of him that easy.
Yep. Information from Matt Kim from IGN. Reggie's joining GameStop's board of directors. He is being brought alongside two other board members, which are veteran retail business executive Bill Simon and PetSmart CEO JK Simisic.
Yeah.
I never thought I'd say PetSmart on here in a news story. Gonna be honest.
Is that the first time we said PetSmart on Nerds Large Gaming Podcast? I'm getting yes.
Okay. So yeah, they're joining the board of directors to help kind of fix GameStop. I know they're not going to have a giant role in this. Obviously, they're just kind of like, hey, be on here and I guess kind of help us, give us maybe some advice, and just kind of take our money.
Yeah, it was like a funny thing to talk about. Like, oh, Reggie left Nintendo for GameStop. It's not that big of a deal. It's not that big of a thing. Being on the board of directors means that, like, yeah, maybe he'll be consulted every few months or something and get an extra paycheck in the mail and just, like, be able to, they were like, hey, look, we have a Reggie. You know, but it's not, like, this is not Reggie's day job going up there. I mean, like, there's still, he left Nintendo because he wanted more time with his friend, his family and everything.
Oh, yeah, I mean, this happening a year after he left Nintendo. It's obviously it's not related. This just kind of happened. as a bonus thing. I mean, it's probably not affecting his day-to-day much, if at all.
No. And it's something that, like, you know, if he joins on there and somehow has any part in bringing GameStop out of the grave, then cool, he did a great thing. And if they do collapse and fail, it's like, what could Reggie have done? He's like, there's really there's no bad side. It's just
He just gets a paycheck.
Yep.
He gets paid.
Get that paper, Reggie.
Speaking of getting paper, stuff comes from Wesley LeBlanc.
Shout
From
out.
Reggie.
He was one of my fellow Twinfinite co-writers.
Nice.
Yeah. Cool dude.
Okay, so pretty much Dream developer Minimako is looking into ways that Dream's creation can be used for business purposes beyond PS4. Ooh. What? I just might read
you
this
can
one.
make money off of your bad Sonic game.
Yeah. In a Dreams update post-release Friday, March 15th, the developer answered a few questions it's received from the community. One being how players could potentially use their own creations for business purposes. Media Molecule had a lengthy answer for that, and it seems the company is working on a way to allow users to use their creations outside of PlayStation. The update continues to explain that the evaluation is only available to early access members in good standing. Media Molecule asks that those who apply have published creations that can be viewed or have a show reel that showcases the work made in Dreams viewable to the studio. As far as what kind of projects this evaluation applies to, Media Molecule said basically any Dreams creation as long as its value all PlayStation is demonstratable. The update post also answered a few other questions regarding original creations in Dreams. Media Molecule said the creator of an original idea in Dreams is the IP owner for that creation, and that said person is free to use their IP in artwork, music portfolios, collages, or even a t-shirt design.
This is something that, like, Media Molecule has, like, always, like, hinted at a little bit when they were talking about Dreams, but, like, it just seems like a gigantic legal can of worms to me, like, getting into anything like this, because you think of a lot of Dreams creations, like, if they're made using a bunch of different people's assets and you try to, like, sell that or something, how does that work? You know, like, is the guy who made the tree that you just used, you couldn't have made this without his tree, does he get some money with this? Like, it seems like the only way that, like, some of these will work is if you entirely create the things yourself. If, like, everything you make is your own. But
I think the way they're not necessarily making money off the games, it's making money off the stuff like a character, like
if you put a character you made
that pilgrimage game we played, that the little Mario
shirts or figures or
something
like
of that guy. If someone else made him, then obviously that wouldn't be able to work. Like, but I think if like a tree or something or like stairs are being used, I don't think that'd be an issue per se. But and obviously with this stuff, if you make a deformed Superman or something, you can't really sell that. I assume based on this.
Damn
it.
Well, then again, people sell shirts with deformed whatever.
Jacob already ordered 30,000 shirts of deformed Superman.
Oh, that reminds me. Have you guys
put that on my Etsy?
Have you guys seen the Sinfield Dream?
Mm-mm.
Oh boy, we need to look at that.
Seinfeld. Like,
yeah, it's great.
The name already sounds
I appreciate that Dreams is like the new home to weird internet bullshit now.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, there's a lot of the bullshit and the meme stuff, but people are making some cool stuff
too.
Yeah,
I'm not like saying to discount all the good stuff too.
But that is absolutely a pillar.
Yeah,
a pillar of Dreams is the weird internet bullshit.
I think the mix of it right now makes Dreams just a very enjoyable platform. Yes. But as far as this goes, I think it's cool they're looking into this stuff and trying to get it all kind of straightened out, so people who put all this time into making stuff could make profit off their creations in some way.
It's a very unique problem that we just have not had in any other game, because no other game has been like this.
Yeah, Dreams is a very weird thing.
Where it's like we've had other creation games, but they're always like within a certain mold. You're making Little Big Planet levels, and it's like there was never any illusion that this is yours. This is all being made with Little Big Planet. Dreams, make whatever the fuck.
Why can't I profit off on Mario Maker levels? Come on.
Exactly. Yeah, I don't think you make a Mario Maker level and it's like, this is entirely mine. I own this pipe.
And what I need to do is for Easy Allies to profit off the game they're making called Who's in the Bathroom.
Who's in the bathroom?
Who's in the bathroom?
Who is in the bathroom?
We're gonna find out when we play the game.
Well, don't call me mama, but yes, I am your mama.
Yep, they profit off that.
Still, we need to play that game still, especially now. Pour one out.
Pour one out. So yeah. let's move on. We got finally an announcement we knew that's going to be coming for a long time, but it's finally announced. Horizon is coming to PC. It's coming out this summer, and I don't know if they officially announced the platforms itself, but it is already. I mean, it's already on Steam.
Right? Yeah.
Steam.
Not that Epic Game Store.
At least not yet.
So wait, is now when I break the table in anger?
Yes.
Okay. All right.
Grab your PlayStation 4 and break it over your head.
Regardless what like very emotional, like mentally unstable people who desperately need help will tell you, this is objectively a good thing. More people get to play Horizon. That's really cool. It's a game that like everyone who played it on PS4, myself included, I'm constantly thinking, man, this would look incredible on an awesome PC. And like if you had consistent 60 frames per second and all these other things, it's like, yeah, this is just really, really cool. What do y'all think about this? And also the big question, at least for me, is what do you think this means for future Sony exclusives? Because Sony has never even come close to doing a game this big of their own exclusivity on PC. That just does not happen.
It's hard to answer that question because I feel like a big reason they're doing this Horizon is because with the Decima engine, Death Stranding is doing it. It's on the same engine, so it's a lot easier to do for this.
Yeah.
That it would like their other games. That's why it's Horizon in particular.
Yeah.
I know they're gonna do a test. Like this is being used as like a test for it for them to do future games.
Yeah, but I 100% do not think that like the only reason they didn't put Uncharted 4 on there was because it's hard to do. It's because it was exclusive and they were like we're making it exclusive and everything. Like obviously, I mean, yeah, that's why it's Horizon. But there's obviously been a idea like a mindset change here.
Yeah. Well, and even and also this kind of goes against what I said. The like Detroit going to PC and those kind of games. Those are still technically Sony games. They just like Quantum Dream.
That was like the first step, but then like now we have like the Sony first party game.
So also a very important thing to note, and this isn't surprising at all. They said they are not planning to do day and date for their games on PC.
Yeah, I guess I'll tell you what I think. I think this means that pretty much all first-party Sony games going forward will come to PC eventually. It'll probably be years after.
I'm going to go against you and say not all of them because the ones that fail will not. And that's not coming to PC. As much as we need it in our lives.
Or at least a lot of them.
Oh, no, I agree. I agree. I'm interested to see what I agree with you. I'm interested to see what the timetable will be because it's hard to tell, again, because the one example we really have is Horizon, which is a 3-year-old game. So we need to see them do this more and see what the general timetable is, or if it's just like, we just feel like putting this game out there for now. Or when do we get to, what's the newest, the shortest between the PS4 and the PC released after a couple games? What's that?
What do you think, Jacob?
Yeah, I think these Sony exclusives coming to PC will continue to be an exception and not necessarily become a rule. Games like Horizon, Death Stranding, that makes sense to see them come to the PC. But I don't think games like any of the games put out by Naughty Dog will come to the PC.
Does it though? I mean, does it make any more sense than Uncharted? I mean, like this has just never happened before. I mean, like sure, the Death Manager or whatever, but again, I don't buy that it's just we're not putting it on PC just because it's not easy to do. Like they want those exclusive, and those exclusives are why I've had a PlayStation, and they're why they've sold those consoles. Like people getting mad at PlayStation or whatever, they're right in the sense that not having exclusives hurts the PlayStation brand. They're wrong in giving a shit about the PlayStation brand because I'm not on the Sony payroll. I don't give a shit.
Says the guy wearing a Sony shirt.
I'm not getting money for
I
that.
know. It's funny. It's just a funny thing.
It is funny. So I don't like. At least to me, Horizon doesn't seem like any different. It would be really weird to me if Horizon is just like, this is the only time we did this. Yep. We put Horizon on PC and then we never did, any other exclusives.
I mean, the way I see games like The Last of Us and maybe whatever game that Insomniac makes next, I think those are real money makers for Sony, and I think they may want to keep those really big prestige titles tied to their system. And not saying that Horizon is like any less prestige than The Last of Us, but I feel like there's kind of like a difference in maybe public perception of those games, and I think it makes sense to me for them to want to maybe keep the best of the best on their system.
Yeah.
And so, I think we'll definitely see more Sony exclusives come to the PC, but games like, there's a Bloodborne 2 and it's Sony exclusive. I don't really see that coming to PC.
Yeah, it's weird just because up until now, the lines have been so rigid.
Right.
It's like Xbox exclusives, Sony exclusives, non-exclusives. So it's like, there are no exceptions aside from like Minecraft, I guess, but that's like, that was a thing before this existed. So that like makes sense. I do think, I don't know, it just feels like this is one of those things that once this door opens, it keeps going. Because like Horizon was pitched, it was treated like it's one of those big games. Horizon wasn't this like
it's
tiny
sold like
little
it's a big game.
And it's sold like that. I mean, it's sold like God of War and Spider-Man levels. Obviously less, but not like a lot less. Like I just don't know if I really buy it. There's like that much of a distinction between Horizon and Last of Us and God of War in them. Like I get that there is kind of a distinction, but I think that not enough for like, or at least it's not going to be clear which games come to PC and which don't. No. If some do and some don't, I don't think you're going to be able to draw this obvious line of what does and what doesn't.
No, certainly not. But I would not bet money on like all of Sony's exclusives eventually coming to PC.
Well, what do y'all think about stuff like the Uncharted collection? It's old games, and even that collection has been out for a long time. Like the remastered collection has been out for a long time. Do you see them like going backwards and going to some of those? And
Cold take. One of the next
that would
ones
be awesome. That would be
Cold take. One of the next ones will probably be Dreams.
Yeah, that would be sweet. Yeah. I would much rather have Dreams on PC than PlayStation.
Me and Monculus has shown interest in doing that as well. I think interest is part of it. I think I remember reading stuff about Guerrilla Games in particular. Interested in putting Horizon on PC. Yeah. So this might be partly up to the individual devs.
Studio too. Yeah.
Like, are they putting Horizon on there because they're like changing their philosophy and like they're going more of Xbox's route? Like, because I do think Xbox has some play in this. Like, Xbox and the way that they're changing their business has something to do with this. Mm-hmm. And is this like them changing their mindset to go more in that direction, or was Horizon put on there because their mindset had changed, but it's put on there because it's a 3-year-old game? And like, is again, the next step is like the Uncharted collection, and then like years from now when God of War is distant in the past, oh, God of War is on PC now. Is it going to be that? Is it age? Is age the big factor? I don't really know.
Yeah, I mean the cynical version of this, they're putting Horizon to promote the PS5 and Horizon 2 kind of thing. It's like, hey, if you want the sequel to this, you better buy a PS5, boy.
Oh, you believe that's part of the calculus, 100%.
Yeah, I mean, at the end of the day, I kind of lean towards that opinion because, I mean, putting these games on PC, I don't think Sony is doing it necessarily to copy Microsoft or, out of some sense of goodwill. I think it's a calculated business decision, and they know that their platform compared to Xbox has the best exclusives, and they're going to do what they can to entice people to buy their platform for those exclusives.
It's just interesting because they've never done this before.
Yeah, I think you can kind of, just as we're talking, we kind of mentioned the stars is aligned with Horizon being the game. 3-year-old game, Decima engine, potentially promoting the headliner for your new console. Just those stars aligned to where they're like, okay, we'll throw this out there, be a test, and go from there.
Yeah, it's definitely not going to be the only one. I think there's going to be other big ones. I just don't like Sony was going to sell fine with the PS5 anyway. Horizon 2 was even probably going to sell fine. Like this is a pretty big move for it to just be well, this one works. Let's put that one out. Like I just can't buy that this is not like a identity shift, and maybe it's just going to start to be games come out on the PS5 or whatever, and they sell, and once they think that it's sold all it's going to sell pretty much, then it comes to PC. Is that like, because Horizon probably internally, it's probably sold largely what it was going to sell. It's probably its life cycle is pretty much done. So this is something that gives it like the next jolt. The big thing to look for will be like, will this happen to God of War years from now? That's things like that. My gut says yes, because I just can't see this being one-off thing. It would be a very weird one-off thing because of how important exclusives have been for so long.
Yeah,
exclusives are like the bread and butter of these consoles failing or not. So interesting.
Yep.
But exclusives dying is nothing but good for consumers, regardless of what people tell you. I mean, more people get to play the game.
Yeah, for sure.
But we lose our identity as gamers.
If your identity is tied up in a corporation making money, then you have a problem. That corporation doesn't give a fuck about you, I promise. They want your money and that's it.
You mean Papa Reggie doesn't care?
Oh, boy.
Speaking of not caring, Naughty Dog about his employees. Oh, okay. I kind of just had this in here, not necessarily for us to talk about because it's just kind of us beat, unless you guys want to talk about it, of course, us beating the drum about crunch bad. But I didn't want to throw out there Jason Schreier's article about Naughty Dog and his crunch that, hey, surprise, the delay did not make the crunch any better. It just extended the crunch and all that.
I think we can talk about what to do if you feel, strongly about this article and this news, and you feel strongly about like what is an appropriate action to take to express disapproval toward the way a company treats its employees in a case like this. So what do you guys think? Like, what is an appropriate action to take if you even want to take action?
So this came up with like Red Dead and Rockstar, of course. It's just a weird thing because let's say you decide not to buy it because of the crunch and all that, then the argument is, and some of the developers who are affected by crunch and don't like the crunch, but they're like, hey, if you don't buy it, then that does hurt us in a way because then, this all doesn't work. We don't get our bonuses if it doesn't sell enough
it's just
and all
like,
that.
This is always like a thorny situation for me, and I don't fault anyone for anything, but like it's kind of like an endless cycle though, because like when it's like you should buy this because the people, there's good people under it who will suffer if you don't buy it or whatever. But at the same time, if you buy it, that company gets the message that we can treat our employees like shit and still sell our game, and nothing changes in that way. You know what I mean? Like I did like, because if you never ever boycott anything or never do anything because we gotta support the people underneath, then that just tells the like billionaires at the top that everything's good. Everything's good. Because you speaking out on Twitter is great and everything. Mr. CEO doesn't care if he's getting his money. If he's getting money coming through there, you can yell all you want. No one gives a shit,
Well, the thing is with this situation in particular, like I agree with you generally about the whole boycotts and all that kind of stuff. But it feels like game development's kind of his own kind of special case with this. I don't know. It seems at least a little different with the way the stuff, like when you were talking about big old CEO and all that kind of stuff. It's not the Sony CEO that's pushing this. It's Naughty Dog's like Neil Druckmann and that kind of stuff themselves. So it's not gonna be Neil Druckmann counting his money to say like, oh, okay. And
this is not even. It's not even like It's not really the guy in a suit twirling his mustache, cackling type thing. It's not forced crunch. I mean, when you hear about a lot of these things, people aren't saying like, you have to stay in, you have to work 100 hours this week. It's the boss is working 100 hours. The boss is not going home. So you as an employee, even though you really want to go home and you feel dead tired and burn out, you're like, well, if I do, everyone's going to think that I'm the like slacking, that I'm killing this whole project. They're going to have to delay because like I'm like being lazy. That's the problem. It's kind of a systemic problem just in the actual culture of the place, and I've seen that in a lot of places I do. Like even when I worked at the Daily Gamecock, when I worked at the student newspaper there or whatever, you see some of that where it's like, your boss like is like hard working doing all this or whatever, and it's like, all right, I guess I need to stay. I totally get how that can happen. That's a very hard thing to fix, because again, it's not Neil Druckmann just being evil, but it's a culture that tears people apart. It's a culture that just the way that it functions or whatever is not sustainable, and it just hurts people's health.
Indeed, which is why the way that I feel about this is that I don't think boycotting, saying, oh, don't buy the game, that never works. And I think it's a very it's a very limited perspective on how to combat crunch and abuse and an abusive environment in the workplace. I think what you need to do is that you need to really you need to vote, and you need to support politicians that are ensuring the betterment of workers across all industries,
right,
as well as games. Support efforts to unionize in video game in the industry, Game Workers Unite, that sort of thing. So you can still buy the game. I think you can still enjoy it, and if you feel strongly about crunch, one is vote for policies that would affect and help fix this type of systemic problem, and it's not going to be unionization is not just going to fix this issue either. It's a long-term cultural shift that needs to happen. And also at the same time is also talking about crunch openly and critically. With this sort of story, this story doesn't need to come up in podcasts, for this week and then, forgotten. It needs to be talked about all the time whenever people talk about The Last of Us Part 2, even in reviews. I think crunch needs to be brought up, and you need to be critical when analyzing a game like The Last of Us. It's like, at what point, what part of the game development and what aspects of it could you tell that, were not necessary and maybe played into the aspects of crunch and overworking workers. I mean, like, we look at the Red Dead Redemption 2 and that whole issue around putting the black bars on cutscenes to make them more cinematic. That cost a lot of people a lot of time to put in those black lines on.
And it was cool, but
it really didn't make a difference.
Was it really worth that?
Yeah. So game project leaders, I think, need to shift and as well as people who talk about games and journalists, they need to be, I think, more critical of what parts of a game, how much time goes into those aspects of it, and think critically about how that was made through the work of employees, which may have been not necessary.
And just as a manager, like, your team and the health of your team and the work-life balance of your team should be more important than the quality of the game. It should. I mean, like, you might make worse games or whatever, but like, if you are making the best game imaginable, but you're doing it on the back of terrible labor practices, then you failed. You did a bad job. I mean, like, you need to be looking at both. Like, it's not something that, like, workers are not just a tool for you to sculpt an amazing game in a short amount of time. Like, both things need to come into play. And, like, I'm not saying that, like, Neil Druckmann's a terrible person for that or whatever. He's far from the only one. And, like, I struggled with it too sometimes as a leader. Obviously, in some very smaller project, but I struggled as a leader where it's like you have these deadlines, so you need these things done, and it's easy to, like, lose focus, to lose sight of that. But I agree with you. It comes down to, and I'm more playing devil's advocate about the boycott thing. Like, I don't think, like, that's what I mean. It's thorny for me. I'm not saying go out and boycott everything, but I'm also.
But if you want to, like, if you don't want to buy this game, I'm not gonna, that's fine.
Right. I'm not gonna. And, like, people who don't support Blizzard anymore after the everything with Hong Kong, I completely support that. Like, I went out and immediately donated money to the Hong Kong cause and, like, things like that. And I think doing things like that, putting in the time, and, like you said, vote for politicians who are supporting workers' rights and supporting. I mean, we don't have, especially compared to a lot of other first world countries and civilized countries or whatever, we are pretty far behind on a lot of workers' rights issues. And I think it does come down to the things like that. It's a very slow change, and it is getting better in the video game industry. But we do too much of it's done. It's like, you look at Naughty Dog, the same article about Naughty Dog has basically been written multiple times.
Exactly.
I mean, it's,
we got to talk about it. It needs to be something that needs to be present in the discourse about the game, throughout, from when it comes out to, months after it comes out. Yeah. It needs to be something that needs to be part of the conversation.
I agree. And there is definitely also a problem with, I mean, we're guilty of it in the media and everything, of that being one of the big things that we're looking for, but dates and having like this release date, aren't you so excited or whatever, but that internally means like there's this ticking clock to like
get it done.
Like, and the closer you get to that date, it's like, well, we've already delayed it 3 times, we can't delay it again, so you better work and do this. And you know, we're guilty of that too. Honestly, the healthier thing would be we're making this game, it'll be done when it's done, kind of like CD Projekt Red did with Witcher and even Cyberpunk, like, you know, where it's just like very open and out there. That would be better, but that doesn't solve every problem, because a lot of these companies, like, if you gave them more time, then that would just push the crunch longer, basically. You know, it has to change for the whole culture.
Yeah, which is what kind of ties into my point of, you know, weighing, you know, how, you know, what you put into your game versus the human cost of it takes to put that into your game. It's like, you know, could someone spend a whole weekend doing this one tiny little detail, or could they go home? Yeah. You know, I think as project managers, they need to assess that cost.
Yeah. And sometimes that does involve helping people, like saving people from themselves, because some people will just overwork themselves voluntarily, and that's not something that's like, well, he did it, you know, he did it to himself or whatever. I mean, as the leader of this team, it is your responsibility to not encourage that. It is to discourage destroying yourself for this project, because you should care about your team over the game. You know, it's tough. It's a very, very, very hard thing to solve.
Yeah, the large systemic problems like this are never easy. There's never like a one perfect solution to any of it, and it takes a long time to solve.
Yep, and it's like progress is made, but it's very slow. It's easy to feel helpless.
Not to feel something. I guess something in the article I remember, it's like, hey, I wanted to check 70% of their non-lead designers during Uncharted 4 are gone. That's
the worst
terrible
part.
Turnover.
It's the worst part about video game development is your crunch, and you absolutely kill yourself over this project, and then a lot of times you're dumped immediately after the project's done.
Well, it's time to talk about more bad news, as video games did not really sell well last month.
Which I mean is in most part because there's just nothing coming out. I don't think it's as like dire as it, you know.
Yeah, but it is really bad. Sales are down 29% from February a year ago. Yeah, so let's get to those.
It's a combination of nothing's coming out now and everything came out then, this time last year.
So we got some of the top selling games for February. Number 1, Call of Duty, just right back up there. Number 2, NBA 2K20. Number 3, Grand Theft Auto 5. It'll never stop selling, guys. We'll be dead. Grand Theft Auto 5 will still be selling. Number 4, Dragon Ball Z Kakarot. Tom Clancy's The Division 2 at number 5.
It literally was $3 this month. There was a one day where it was $3 on the
So important thing to remember, though. This is on revenue.
That's true.
It sold a lot of those
$3.
Number 6, Mario Kart 8. Number 7, Ring Fit Adventure, man. So it's holding strong. 8, Madden NFL 20. Number 9, Super Smash Bros. Ultimate. And 10 is Star Wars Jedi Fallen Orders. And as far as I don't need to go through the top best-selling games of the year yet so far. I guess a couple things like Kakarot is number 1, being the one new game.
How long will it last? This is the last month.
Yes. I expect at least Animal Crossing will pass it. And just kind of cool. Again, Ring Fit number 9. That's not gonna last long, but that's just cool.
Hey, you got the V there. That's pretty crazy.
Yeah, and let's see some other stuff. Blah, blah, blah. No new video game from February 2020 reached the top 20 bestsellers chart. Best-selling new release of the month was the Yakuza Remastered Collection, placing as the 33rd best-selling game of the month.
Oof. This has to be like a historically bad time for video games.
So
releases,
also,
right? I mean, like,
so let's go into this conversation as well. Important thing to point out: Dreams did not count for new game because you could pay money for it before, but it was also not in the top 20, which is bad.
Yeah, I was about to say it was. I don't know if you have this here. Dreams was 8th on the PSN store.
Yes.
It's not good.
Yeah. Matt Piscateller said in the comment. Let me pull it up because I took a screenshot of it. So where exactly Dreams placed because someone just asked about it, so he just kind of said it. Number 26 for Dreams for the month.
In a very, very, very bad month already, and it's that low.
Yep.
So Dreams bombed. Regardless, even though the press was positive, Dreams bombed.
Nope.
Not entirely surprising, but and also like on Kind of Funny Games, they looked up what it tells you like how many people were on Dreams at a time. It was like 3,000 total in the entire world.
That's no good.
Yeah.
Sucks.
I mean, this is kind of a crazy. This is like just a crazy empty time of video games coming off of like 3 straight years of nonstop stuff. So
I think when we all know it's supposed to be crazy going into this. I mean, January was still going to be what it was, I believe. I don't think anything really got delayed out of July or January. That was major. February got stuff delayed, but well, now we're getting into the crazy stuff because it's just because we got Doom, Animal Crossing, and Ori at the very least that will be on this month, and based on what we're seeing, Ori is doing very well, despite the Game Pass stuff. And also to give an idea of numbers of how all this does, they announced Bandai Namco that Kakarot, I believe it was this past week, surpassed 2 million in total sales. Not bad, but when that's the number 1 selling game of the year so far.
Yeah.
yeah,
well, things will change very quickly.
I mean, again, I expect Animal Crossing will be the number 1 next month. The only thing that would potentially keep it back is the fact no digital sales, but when has that crazily hurt Nintendo games on this before?
Did you mean Doom Crossing?
Yes.
I think that's what you meant to say.
Yeah.
Was that the podcast, Jeff?
I believe so. We're about to get into the craziness where we just get new games upon new games all over our faces.
All right. Well, Jacob, did you have a good time?
I did.
You think you'll come back?
Thank you for letting me be here.
Yeah. Well,
He didn't answer the question. He's not coming back.
Remember your social distancing only.
Yes.
Like we touch wrists now or elbows.
Elbows.
Okay.
There we go.
Jeff. Yeah. Okay. All right. Yeah.
My weenus.
Be good. Be safe. Play a lot of video games
And wash your
indoors
hands.
and wash your damn hands, you animals. Bye.
Bye.